It is Morning in America. Welcome back. Been looking forward to this all morning. Congressman Tom Cotton for the 4th District of Arkansas and a former Publius Fellow of the Claremont Institute. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Bill. It's great to be on with you.
Great to be on with you. You know, I have a lot of respect for you, and I want you to have a lot of respect for me, so I'm going to tell you that Paul Ryan was once my intern.
and we were both once proctors in Matthews.
Were you really?
Yes.
No kidding. What year were you at Proctor and Matthews?
I superintended the unruly freshmen in that dormitory from 1999 to 2002.
No kidding. I had no idea. That was my job. What was your room? Was it Matthews 22?
I can't know. I was on the first floor.
Okay. All right. And I had to be in the third floor to be in the middle of it. Was it chaotic?
Anytime you're dealing with 18-year-olds, whether it's at college or in the Army, it's always a little chaotic.
How did you find this out, Tom? I got to ask you. This is just amazing to me.
Well, you're the author of many books, and I tend to read them over the years.
It doesn't say he was a proctor in Matthews at Harvard.
I can't remember, actually. I think I've heard an interview of yours or something along the years.
Well, you have about the best resume I know, but I can tell you this in response. See, it's for mine. When I got my Ph.D. and then my law degree, and I was at Harvard, I was Dr. Proctor.
That's funny.
All right. Tom, thanks very much for joining us. You did indeed grow up in Arkansas, right? Public high school?
Yeah. I went to my local public school in Dardanelle, Arkansas.
Went to Harvard?
Yeah.
Then what?
Went to Harvard Law. The 9/11 attacks happened
Right.
my last year of law school, and that kind of changed my direction. So I worked for a couple years to pay off my loans, but as soon as that happened, I left the law, and I became an infantry officer and Army Ranger, and ended up going to both Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, it's a terrific resume, but more than a resume, this is a terrific man, folks. We're delighted to have him. You didn't mention the Publius Fellow of the Claremont Institute, but I did, and that was an important point too, right?
I was that as well.
So we have a lot of points of intersection. We'd love to get together with you, Tom, sometime. Let's talk Turkey here. Let's talk about immigration. I was just on with Byron York. He said, this is not, where you open your article, but let's jump in here. If you could be assured of border security first, would you entertain thoughts of a path to citizenship?
Not initially, no. I think, the American people have confidence that the Congress will grant amnesty because Congress has before and Congress keeps trying to. What they lack confidence in is whether we will actually secure the border, which is one important piece of enforcement, but also enforce immigration laws elsewhere. 40% of all illegal immigrants are here on visa overstays, and we need a visa tracking system. And we also need an employment verification system. So I think, as do my constituents, as do I think a majority of the American people, that Congress needs to provide the kind of confidence that we are finally going to enforce those laws before we consider not just a path to citizenship bill, but legalization. That's the real question, and that's the problem with the Senate bill, is that it has legalization first and enforcement later, which means probably enforcement never.
Right. Your piece this morning is sorry, not this morning, July 10th is terrific in this regard. But the charge that's made by Democrats and some Republicans and some supporters of the Senate bill against you and other folks who believe what you believe is that there's no circumstance under which you would consider a path to citizenship because you're just anti-immigrant.
Well, Bill, that's simply false.
Right.
I think immigrants are a great source of dynamism and a great source of renewal for America. You've seen this time after time again, whether it's the waves of immigration from Northern Europe or Eastern Europe or Southern Europe. But one key part about that immigration past is that was legal immigration. I think it's unfair and unjust to the millions of foreigners who are waiting patiently around the world to come here and contribute to our society in a legal way. One of these people I knew, an Afghan interpreter of mine, who's literally shed blood for the United States. He's been long frustrated by the legal system. He could have come here legally at any point, but he hasn't. And I don't think that we should reward people whose first act was to come here legally when we have so many people who are waiting to come here legally around the world.
See, it's the attribution of negative animus here to people who are saying very prudent and thoughtful things that bothers me. It's a little bit like, this reminds me, I don't go far afield here, but it reminds me a bit of Justice Kennedy saying, if you're opposed to gay marriage, you must be motivated by some kind of negative animus toward gay people. Same arguments being made, it seems to me, in regard to immigration. Supporters of the Senate bill are saying, well, the people who are opposed to it are just anti-immigrant. You see my point?
Yeah, and Bill, I mean, it is right now, given the immigration patterns in our country. We have more Hispanic immigrants than anyone else. But you can look at polling data of Hispanic Americans who are immigrants. A lot of them oppose any kind of immediate legalization or path to citizenship because they came here and did the right thing. They followed our immigration laws. They came here on visas or guest worker programs. They applied overseas and came here. And they don't want to reward people whose first action was to break our laws either when they played by the rules.
Right, and about half, I think, to put a number on it. The other thing I noticed recently in an article about assimilation is about half of the legal immigrants who come from Central America and Latin America into this country a year or 2 years after they arrive, when they're asked what their nationality is, do not say American. They talk about their country of origin. Now, what the heck's going on here? Is it unreasonable to ask of people who wish to become citizens of the United States that once becoming that, they identify themselves as Americans?
Yeah, no, I mean, we do need to do a better job of assimilating immigrants from all countries and ensuring that they have a path to success in this country. You saw this a lot in the last decade or last 2 decades in debates about English-only legislation. I would say, I would prefer English plus. I mean, it's great. Everybody needs to speak English in America so they can have an opportunity for success. But, I certainly wish I had spoken another language. I wish I spoke Spanish or some other language. I didn't. I don't speak, Latin and Greek and other fancy languages like you. But
watch it, Buster.
I would. I'd like everyone. I'd like every Hispanic child to be able to speak English so they can have a chance for success, and I'd like every other child of every other race to be able to speak other languages so they can succeed in a growing global economy. But foremost, we have to ensure that we provide everyone, whether they're native born or whether they're immigrant, the tools they need to succeed in America and in a global economy.
Yeah, this is a job we have to do. The whole assimilation business is a mess. Of course, we don't educate our own children to our own principles, right? The children who are born here do not know the history of America. They don't know the founding principles, correct?
Regrettably, that's often the case, yes.
Right. So we need to do this for, we have kind of resident aliens. You remain alien to yourself in the past in which your culture's denied. Let's get back to politics here. What's going to happen? My worry, I don't like Senate bill at all, is that you all will come up with a bill and then there'll be a compromise and it'll look like the Gang of Eight. Can you tell me that's not going to happen?
I wish I could tell you that's not going to happen.
Okay.
I can tell you that I will certainly do everything within my power to stop that from happening. That was the point I tried to make in the Wall Street Journal editorial last week, as well as to my peers in the House, is that if we pass legislation and go to a conference committee with the Senate, there's a real likelihood that it becomes a Trojan horse to pass an amnesty first bill after that conference.
Yeah, no, it's a great piece. We're going to put a link up to it. I know you can't guarantee me that, but what do you think is likely to happen? Do you think we'll see the House produce a bill soon?
It's hard for me to imagine how we're going to pass legislation before the August recess. We have 12 legislative days for that recess. We have some very important and I would say much higher priorities. We're going to this week try to legalize Barack Obama's extra-legal delay of the employer mandate of Obamacare. To make it fair, since he only granted an exception for big business, we're also going to try to delay the individual mandate. We've got the appropriations bill coming for the military, which is a very important measure.
Yes.
We've got the Elementary and Secondary Education Act coming up this week. So I just don't see, given all of these major pieces of legislation we're trying to pass, reaching the immigration issue before September at the earliest.
We're talking to Congressman Captain Tom Cotton, tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, Congressman for the 4th District of Arkansas. Be remiss if I didn't say, are you at least considering that Senate race in Arkansas?
Well, I do get a lot of encouragement, not just from folks like you, but from Republicans and even Democrats all around Arkansas. But because I've been so engaged so far, or so much lately on the immigration debate, as well as some of the developments that are very troubling around the world, I just haven't had much time to think about politics. But, once we have this behind us and there's a little bit more time, maybe in the August recess, I'll think a little bit more about it.
I've written about this, ambition and political ambition, and people say ambition's a bad word. No, it isn't. It depends ones for whose purposes one has that ambition. Those ever-expanding goals and ends of serving other people can justify political ambition. I know you're very much about your work. You've been a taskman all your life and doing your jobs, but we sure do hope you'll consider it, Congressman. I want to thank you for coming on. I just will give you a little quiz at the end, given your slap at me about Latin and Greek. Can you translate the word veritas to me?
It means truth.
Okay. Do they teach it at Harvard?
They did, although for the longest time I thought it was veritas and couldn't figure out what it meant.
Thank you, Tom Cotton. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, great.